She didn't yell. She didn't threaten. She didn't send a memo. She walked out from behind that curtain in a tailored blazer with the kind of calm that only belongs to someone who has already decided your fate, and before the crowd could even process what was happening, the sound cut through the entire arena like a thunderclap. One open palm. One stunned silence. And just like that, the man who had bled, scraped, sacrificed, and climbed back from the absolute bottom of professional wrestling was gone. Welcome back to Wrestling Impact. And if you've been with us long enough, you already know when something this seismic happens in the world of WWE, we don't just recap it. We unpack it. We live inside it. Because this isn't just a moment. This is a chapter. And the name at the top of this chapter? Cody Rhodes. The American Nightmare. The man who came home to finish the story only for that story to be ripped right out of his hands by the most powerful woman in professional wrestling history. Let's go back to the beginning, not the beginning of this specific segment, but the beginning of everything that made it matter so much. Because you cannot understand why that slap landed with the weight of a freight train unless you understand exactly what Cody Rhodes has been carrying since the day he walked back through the WWE entrance tunnel. Cody Rhodes left WWE years ago with something to prove. And when he came back, he didn't come back quietly. He came back through pyro and fire and the kind of crowd reaction that makes grown men in the production truck lean back in their chairs and whisper, "Nobody planned for this." He came back and he reminded every single person in every arena, every living room, every barbershop where a wrestling fan was watching on their phone that the dream doesn't die just because someone tells you it should. He went to WrestleMania. He lost. He went back. He won. He stood in the middle of that ring with the WWE Championship above his head, tears running down his face, and it felt for a moment like the ending of something beautiful. Like the universe had aligned. Like professional wrestling, for all its chaos and contradiction and manufactured drama, had actually told a real human story with a real human ending. But that's the thing about WWE. The story never actually ends. Not when there's money on the table. Not when there's power to be exercised. And nobody in that company understands power like Stephanie McMahon. Now, when Stephanie McMahon shows up on WWE television, you feel it before she even speaks. There's a gravitational shift. The camera angles change. The lighting gets crisper. The superstars in the ring suddenly stand just a little bit straighter. Because she doesn't carry authority, she is authority. Born into this business, raised inside it, shaped by it, and in many ways responsible for shaping it right back. She has sat across boardroom tables from Fortune 500 executives. She has stared down Hall of Famers. She has, on multiple occasions, made the entire locker room hold its breath with nothing more than a raised eyebrow. So when her music hit that night, that composed, deliberate entrance theme, and she walked out with that expression that sits somewhere between businesswoman and executioner, the crowd felt it. And Cody Rhodes, standing in the center of that ring, felt it too. You could see it in his posture. The slight shift of his jaw. The way his eyes tracked her movement down the ramp like he was doing math he didn't want the answer to. She stepped between the ropes with the kind of precision that suggests she's done it 1,000 times, even when she hasn't. She took the microphone from the ring announcer, didn't ask for it, didn't gesture for it, just extended her hand and it appeared, and she looked at Cody Rhodes the way you look at a decision you've already made. She spoke calmly. That was the most terrifying part. No raised voice. No theatrics. Just clean, precise language about what WWE represents, about the standard she expected to be maintained, about the image of this company, her family's company, and what it meant to be a standard bearer for that image. She talked about opportunity and gratitude and responsibility, and every word was wrapped in that thin, polite varnish that powerful people use when they want you to understand that they are not angry. They are simply correct. And then she said the words. Not shouted. Not dramatically declared. Said the way you say something you've rehearsed until it doesn't feel like a sentence anymore, it just feels like a verdict. She said that effective immediately, Cody Rhodes was being relieved of his duties with WWE. The arena broke. Not in the way arenas break for a surprise return or a championship win. That kind of break is euphoria, it's upward, it's a release. This was a different kind of break. This was the break of disbelief. The kind where people turn to the person next to them not to celebrate but to confirm, to make sure they heard what they thought they heard. You could hear it in the crowd noise, that fractured, confused roar that is wrestling's version of a collective gasp. Signs dropped. Children looked up at their parents. Grown adults in Cody Rhodes t-shirts put their hands on their heads. Cody didn't explode. He didn't lunge. He stood there, microphone dropping slightly at his side, and he looked at Stephanie McMahon the way a man looks at something that has just confirmed every dark thought he'd ever had about how this world actually works. He opened his mouth, and in that half second before sound came out, the entire arena collectively leaned in, and he said, quietly but clearly, that she had no right to. That was the match that lit the fuse. Because Stephanie McMahon does not accept that framing. She doesn't live in a world where someone tells her what right she does or doesn't have inside that building. And so she did something nobody in that arena was fully prepared for, even though in hindsight, every dramatic beat of the segment was building toward exactly this. She slapped him. Open palm. Across the face. Hard enough that the sound carried to the back of the upper deck. Hard enough that the ringside camera caught the exact millisecond of impact, Cody's head turning with it, his eyes wide, that split second where the body reacts before the brain has time to process what just happened. The crowd erupted. Not in cheers, not in boos, in pure primal reaction. The kind of sound that fills a building when something real has happened. When the line between performance and genuine human confrontation blurs so completely that it doesn't matter anymore. And then Stephanie McMahon straightened her blazer, looked at Cody one more time with those cold, composed eyes, and walked out of that ring without looking back. Because powerful people don't look back. They don't need to. They've already decided what happens next. Cody Rhodes stood alone in the center of that ring. No music. No pyro. No championship. Just him, and the crowd, and the quiet. Security personnel flanked the entrance, not running, walking, calmly, professionally, and it was that calmness that made it hit even harder. Because frantic chaos is survivable. Calm finality is something else entirely. He looked around that ring. He looked at the crowd. And if you have ever been a fan of Cody Rhodes, if you sat in front of your television the night he came back and felt your heart lift in your chest, watching that moment was one of the most devastating things professional wrestling has produced in years. Because it wasn't defeat in a match. You can come back from that. It was something more surgical. Something designed to cut deeper. They were taking his home. Now let's talk about what this means. Let's talk about the layers, because this is Wrestling Impact and we don't do surface level. Stephanie McMahon as a figure in this story is not random. She is not a placeholder authority figure. She represents something specific and something deeply loaded in the history of this business. This is a woman whose family built the stages that Cody Rhodes and every other superstar has performed on. This is a woman who understands, perhaps better than anyone, what the WWE machine can give and what it can take. And using that power, that specific, generational, almost dynastic power against Cody Rhodes, is a statement that goes beyond whatever storyline justification was offered. It says, this ring was never yours. You were always a guest. And for a man whose entire story is built around belonging, around coming home, around proving that the door that was once closed in his face could be kicked open through sheer force of will and love for this business, there is no more targeted attack. There is nothing more personal. Now think about the locker room. Think about what happened backstage after that segment aired. You have a roster full of men and women who have watched Cody Rhodes carry this company on his back through some of the biggest moments of the last several years. Who have watched him throw himself headfirst into this craft, torn pec and all, if we're going to talk about real sacrifice, and who now have to process the fact that even that isn't enough. Even winning the championship. Even becoming the face of the company. Even filling stadiums. Even bringing people back to professional wrestling who hadn't watched in a decade. Even all of that in one decision from the corner office unravels every thread. That's terrifying if you're a superstar standing in the back watching on a monitor. That is a reminder of exactly who holds the real power in this world. And WWE knows that. WWE is counting on you feeling that. Because the best wrestling stories aren't just about what happens inside the ropes, they're about power structures and who gets to define reality and what ordinary people do when extraordinary forces are stacked against them. The question hanging over every segment, every promo, every entrance theme that plays going forward is, what does Cody Rhodes do? Because here is the thing about the American Nightmare. Here is the thing that separates him not just as a character but as a performer who understands storytelling at a fundamental level. Cody Rhodes does not accept the ending that other people write for him. It is, at this point, literally his defining trait. He was told he'd never be WWE Champion. He went and became WWE Champion. He was told he was a mid-card name. He went and became the main event. He was told the door was closed. He built a new door. So a firing? From Stephanie McMahon? With the whole world watching, that's not an ending. That's an ignition. The road back from this, and there is a road back, because WWE doesn't fire Cody Rhodes and leave him fired. That's not how storytelling works, and that's not how business works. That road is going to be long and painful and extraordinary. It's going to involve alliances and betrayals and promos that make your skin break out in goosebumps. It's going to involve Cody Rhodes standing in front of a crowd that believes in him with a fire that only grows when someone tries to stamp it out. and saying something that cuts through every layer of corporate power and political maneuvering and gets to the simple, burning, human core of what this is all about. He's coming back. The only question is how. And honestly, that might be the most exciting question in all of professional wrestling right now, because whether Stephanie McMahon is playing a character in a story or serving as a symbol of something larger within the WWE Universe, the narrative thread she just pulled on connects to every single thing that matters in this product. Legacy, power, belonging, sacrifice, the cost of ambition, what you owe the business that made you, and what the business owes you in return. These are not small themes. These are the themes that have driven the greatest stories this industry has ever told. And right now, they're all wrapped up in one man standing alone in a ring, head still stinging from a slap he never saw coming, staring at a door that just closed behind the woman who owns it. That image, Cody Rhodes alone, the crowd buzzing, the silence underneath the noise, is going to live in the memory of anyone who watched it for a very long time. Not because of what it is, because of what it's promising. Because of what it is absolutely, unmistakably setting up. The American nightmare doesn't stay down. He never has. And the people who have been watching long enough, the ones who stood in those arenas and held up their signs and painted their faces and wore out their voices, they know that better than anyone. They're not scared right now. They're ready. Because they've seen this movie. They know that the darkest moment in Act 2 is just the setup for the light in Act 3. And when that light comes, when Cody Rhodes walks back through those curtains with something to say and nowhere left to compromise, when the music hits and the crowd ignites and the story that started with a slap and a firing builds to whatever it's been building toward all along, it's going to be one of those moments. The kind you remember where you were. The kind that reminds you exactly why you fell in love with this crazy, complicated, beautiful thing called professional wrestling. Until then, keep the faith. Keep watching. Keep debating and arguing and believing. Because that's what this community does. That's what makes it matter. If this one hit you the way it hit us, drop a comment below. We want to know where you stand on all of this. Do you think Cody comes back stronger? Is Stephanie the villain this story needed? And who, if anyone, rides with him when the moment finally arrives? Let us know. And if you're not subscribed yet, now is genuinely one of the best times to be here, because the story we just watched the beginning of is going to be one for the books, and we are going to cover every single second of it together.